Happy holidays, everyone. This is Rodney James for MMA Latest News, bringing you part 2 of our conversation with Duane Finley from Flow Combat. He's the senior editor over there, and he's recently written this book, In the Cold Distance, which you can find on Amazon. If you listen to part 1 on the MMA Latest Roundtable podcast, which you can find anywhere that you get your podcast, any podcast app, Duane Finley's phone actually died in mid-sentence, so it's only appropriate that we start this conversation off in mid-sentence. Of course, this time it was my fault. I accidentally double-tapped on the recording, and the question that I had asked him, though, was what was the catalyst? What was the vision that you had that made you embark on this journey that it took to write that book, with no promise of a reward? Everything was all risk, and basically it was out of his own pocket, going out there and creating these stories, making these, relationships happen with the fighters and the coaches that ended up, breeding this incredible journey that he wrote about. So anyway, we talked to Duane about that and some other things. And also, if you haven't seen The Last Jedi, beware of the end of our conversation because there will be some spoilers there. But then again, if you haven't seen it, shame on you. All right, so here it is. This is Duane Finley of Flow Combat. I'm Rodney James for MMA Latest News.
The effort to go somewhere they were at and talk to them on their time. I started to notice there was a like a disclosure more. There was more of a letting in process, and then I kind of rolled those dice, and what I found meant everything. Like there was like a door where it was a hell of a lot of risk. It was like, I don't know if this is gonna be worth anything or if it's gonna turn out. But on the other side of that door was fucking everything. And it's been everything for it's provided the last 5 years of my life. Because I had the little bit of sight to do it, and like you said, the balls to kind of pull it off. Because at the end of the day, I was like, I didn't know there'd be a book or anything like that out of it. What I did know, though, was if I'm going to leave, you and I are the same in the idea that we're going to leave our mark. Wherever we're at, we're there. And people are going to know that we were there. I mean, we're not wallflower type people. So I was like, at the very least, I'm going to write some epic fucking stories that at least be remembered, and then and that's kind of what I started chasing at the beginning. And then, like I said, on the other side of that door, it was everything. And it's opened my mind to so much more, that I realized how much MMA media, how much we're takers, man. Think about whatever about Conor, but MMA, he's given MMA media another kind of life form, right? The headlines and the clicks, whatever. But to give back, we take so much from them, and they don't owe us shit, but we take so much from them. And then, so to give them our time, and better yet, our sincere ear, that was it, man. And I found out these connections were genuine, and I see people on Twitter be like, oh, well, fighters, like I said, I'm not a journalist, I'm a storyteller. So fighters aren't your friends, but dude, I get Christmas cards from these guys, I get phone calls on my birthday and shit, because these are people. I never looked at it as an MMA thing. Man, how can I further myself off of you? I was like, man, I get along with you so well. We understand each other to the point where after this MMA shit's all said and done, we're going to know each other, that's how I see it. It was never a short-term thing, and it's persisted all the way through,
Yeah. And that's what fosters that human element, that human interest type of story that you tell. And again, folks, we're joined by Duane Finley. This is part 2 of our conversation, MMA Latest News Roundtable. You can find part 1. Again, the book is In the Cold Distance. I ordered this off Amazon, had it delivered to my doorstep, and I started reading it. And like I said, we went on vacation last week, and well, I didn't quite get around to reading as much as I planned because of the kids and all the craziness. But I read the first couple chapters, man. I gotta say, I knew you're a good writer, and I'm not just saying that. I really mean this. I was blown away. You're a much better writer than even I thought. And because I've read your stuff before, I've read your MMA stuff. I mean, we're friends on Facebook. I see, your posts. But this is so great because, I went to school for broadcast journalism, and specifically radio, television, and film. And, because I do a little screenwriting. I moonlight as a screenwriter also. And one of the first things they teach you when you're writing stories is you have to immediately, don't waste any time, don't beat around the bush. You have to just punch the viewer or the reader right in the face, drag them right into that story. And goddamn, that is one of my biggest fears, Duane Finley, is driving cross country in a snowstorm, because you and I know, I mean, you're a guy from the Midwest and you talk about it in the book, you know, you're not afraid of that. A lot of my family's from Michigan, and I know what that attitude is. I'm from Texas. I don't have that. For me, I know that the winter can kill you. And if you got stuck out there and you ran out of gas, holy shit, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, to kind of answer the first part of your question, the reason the writing's a little bit different and maybe, like you said, it's a little more captivating is because, you know, there, like, with the book, I could just write, I could free flow better. I didn't have any kind of parameters. When you're like, I don't really operate under parameters of flow combat, but even still, I'm like, man, you know, nobody wants to read too much flowery, you know, because, you know, I cut to the point, but I wax poetic a bunch, you know, like, I appreciate a good skyline, bro. Like, I appreciate, like, I think it adds something. Like, you know, when you're talking about, it was like -10 with the wind. It was like -50. When we get out to that part of, like, we were down by in southern Illinois, if the car goes off the fucking road, we're done. Like, nobody's coming to find us. So the funniest part is
literally, like, it could be death.
Done. Done, because there's, I mean, and I make fun of, you know, my passenger in that situation, but it's true. You know, I was just trying to keep everything calm, but it was like, man, you know, we're fucked out here if this goes bad. So, but the book, you know, the book is filled with that kind of stuff because it just really felt like that, Rodney. It felt like everything was kind of, you know, in a figurative and literal way, some kind of do or die. Like, there was an urgency there, and it was wild because you know, the book takes place in the beginning of 2014 and then wraps up at the beginning of 15. And it's funny because I wrote it in a 3-week stretch, and like the end of 2000, like, yeah, it was early 2016. And what's wild, man, is, you know, I have such a punctual and specific memory of how things work, and I just kind of wrote this in like just like a whirlwind. And it's funny because I didn't recall a bunch of the stuff that was in there, and I had to ask Hunter and, you know, some of the other people, like, you know, it's kind of checking stories and stuff like that, and it was wild. It made me feel like all of that stuff was supposed to happen. Like, I was supposed to go through all of that to get to one point to write that book, and then it's like the close of one chapter start another. Because, dude, just to sit there and run it, like Chuck Mendenhall read it, and he's mentioned in the book, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's like, man, he goes, you just went 0 to 90 the whole way through, and he said it in a good way, you know, like it's a fast-paced book. There's a lot of humor in it, but it's like chronologically, I didn't have to use any tricky tools like flashback or anything. It's all pretty straightforward, you know how, and I wrote it like from memory, and then with the pieces that have interviews in them, I went back and I have those tapes and those files. I went back and played those files, got those quotes. But it was cool, man, to look at it, because when you're going through it like that, when you're doing like 10 cities and 12 days and 130 interviews, and you're all like, it's all over the place. But when you can kind of sit back and look at it as a whole, you're like, man, I did something, you know. And then you think that's just one, because the book deal I signed, it's a 3-book deal. So In the Cold Distance is the first one, but it'll cover, you know, the first one's 14 to 15, second one is 15 to 16, and the third one will be 16 to like right now. So I'll probably end that the third motherfucker with this interview talking about it. I'll put the clip in there because this will be the last interview I do for the year. So yeah, I mean, to think about those 3 years, and I'll tell you this, and this is why I said about kind of why you're such a breath of fresh air and what I like what you're doing, is because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, no point in those 3 years did I ever rest on anything. I didn't. I mean, you think about in those 3 years, bro, I worked for Bleacher Report, CNN. I worked for MMA Junkie, USA Today for a stint doing the Condit thing. I worked for Sports Illustrated. I worked for and you look at those are massive entities. And to think that, like, I almost walked away from it all because I was like, man, there just isn't, I can't see the way I get paid right. I can't see this future. I was tired of the freelance hustle. And then Flow Combat came. You know, and in that time, I think, oh, man, I got a different gig. I'm a senior editor now. And here I am doing 16,000 miles this year on a road trip. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Oh my
Crazy.
God! I just wish you nothing but success on that. That's congratulations on that book deal, and hell, just to get the feedback from Chuck Mendenhall. I was actually just going to mention him. That's probably my favorite writer. As far as MMA, like that. That guy can really captivate me. Yeah, anytime, like I said, I'm humbled by guys like you. Anytime I think I'm a good writer, and I've gotten so much better over the years, I get better and better each time out. But then I read something that Chuck wrote, and I'm like, oh God, man, I suck. I suck so bad compared to this guy. I'm a nerd. I like to read books. And I take it a step further. One thing I like to do is I like to go through and highlight stuff, because I like to go back and like reread things and and read the stuff that I highlighted, and a couple things in here already that really just I was reading, and I just had to have a laugh out loud moment. You said, and I'm paraphrasing at best, but you said trying to wrangle a fighter is a Herculean task unto itself. And God, man, if that is not the truth, I don't know what is, because I tell you, man, that's the grind that I live day in and day out, constantly. But a question I had to that is like, because sometimes you feel like you're annoying people, or even like you might have had a guy on a podcast, or maybe done a one-on-one interview on video, whatever the case may be, and then you reach out to them in the future, and they kind of like give you the cold shoulder, and you start to get like a little paranoid, like, damn, maybe I pissed them off, or maybe they didn't like what I did, or maybe I'm just annoying. And then you see them in person, and they're like, oh, Rodney, what's up, dude? Like, oh, okay. But it's just the way it is, I don't know.
Yeah. You realize in those moments, that it's not that. Like, no, dude, I'll tell you what. If you were pissing them off, or like getting under their skin, or annoying them, or they didn't like it, dude, fighters are so sensitive. For tough people, they're super thin skinned, so they would like let you know. What I found out over the years is, dude, just fighters are flaky, man. Like, they don't mean to be. They're just flaky cats, man. So you kind of got to stay on their ass a little bit. Like, hey, if it's a big interview, like with the road trip, right? Like, I'm going out there, I got to make sure you're at least gonna be around. So what I did is I didn't put any parameters on them. Like, hey, can you be here at 12 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm dude, like in my life, people call it Duane time. Like, I'm the worst. So punctuality is not my thing. But I would say, are you in town? Because if you're in town, I can hunt you down, kind of thing. Yeah. So like getting people lined up for a podcast, and especially something you're trying to turn out on a timely fashion, that's tough shit, man. And that's people that's something that fans will never know. Fans it's great. How great it must be to just sit back and consume things. So like, oh, Rodney got a great guest today. Oh, Chuck Mendenhall had this awesome story. Duane had this long form. Like, I can just sit back and eat it up. They're like, you don't realize that Rodney literally had to chase a motherfucker down 3 blocks and get him from 7-Eleven. Duane had his phone shut off twice just trying to text Calvin Gastelum. Like things aren't easy, but that's part of the chase. And dude, it gets easier, man. The more you do it, the more reps. Like you said, I wanted to touch on the writing thing. You said, as you get better, as you write, dude, that's the great thing, right? There's a lot of things like, you fight as well, but you couldn't fight 20 years from now. You will be a less physical specimen in 20 years from now than you are at this day right here. But I guarantee you will be a 3 times better writer than you are right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Writing is one of the weird things that you get better as you get older.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's one of my lifelong goals is to be old and gray and just be a writer. Just do that. But yeah, it's crazy. Even thinking about like just us trying to match up schedules, because not only do we have our career and our life and our family, I mean, just trying to balance all that, it's crazy, man. And then at the end of the day,
dude, right?
It's a grind. We're all on a grind. I was talking about this yesterday with my coaches at Extreme Couture. It's like for some of those coaches, even the guys that are coaching like UFC fighters, like they're in a very similar boat to us, or even the fighters are too. I think the fighters have it probably the worst though, because they actually have to go through a physical beatdown as well. But even if they're winning, they're still getting physically beat down and mentally drained. But for all of us in this bubble in MMA, Dean Thomas told me a great quote the other day. off the record, offline, we were just talking, and he was like, this world is not as big as we all think that it is, or a lot of people think that it is. It's just not. There's very few millionaires like the Conor McGregors and GSPs, and it's the same thing with us pounding the pavement out here as broadcast journalists or smash mouth journalists or flow combat fucking soldiers. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny, and that's why I give you mad props, because you blur both worlds, right? Like, as I've said forever, the parallel between fighter and writer career is like they travel just like this, except the difference is fighters get punched for a living, we don't, but we have public jobs, so we get kicked in the nuts online a bunch. But you live in both worlds, right? So you're a smash mouth journalist, and then you're also a fighter. So you get to see just how, dude, they're very similar, man. They're very similar grinds. The ups and downs are very, they're very similar too. So I do want to take a quick second and tell you that I'm sorry for your loss too, brother. Bob was a great coach. Bob was a great dude, man, and we lost a good one. Yeah. I was sad to hear about it.
Yeah, very, very. Well, I'm looking at the time, and I know you got to get going. I wanted to throw out some rapid fire questions, but since you bring it up, that was one of them. Yeah, man, thanks for saying that. I met him. You remember when we were out here in March for the MMA awards? Flow Combat was,
yes, sir,
was nominated, and that was the first time. I had dropped into Extreme Couture a couple of days while I was in town, and that was the first time I met him, and we clicked. But then when I moved here in July, I'm training every day, multiple times a day sometimes, and we got, even though it's only been since July, we got pretty close. I mean, like, to the point where, we kept in contact every couple of days in and out of the gym, whether it was text, email, or phone call, and man, I was just so heartbroken, and I'm just in the stage of trying to, I know it hit the whole gym really, really hard. I just, I got back from Scottsdale, and yesterday I just went back to the gym for the first time, and there's a lot of long faces in there, and you could just feel the energy or the lack thereof. But I was wondering, like, did you have any good stories about Follis to share?
Oh, absolutely. I'll say this: the reason that such a big impact at Extreme Couture, because he was a instrumental part of turning that around. If you remember, they had, the first wave, I call it, when Randy started it up, they had Gray Maynard, Jay Haran, Martin Camp, and Mike Pyle. Those guys brought a lot of notoriety to the gym because those guys were all in the upswing. Well, eventually those guys kind of departed. And I believe at one time, man, I remember I came through and Brad Tavares was there with Ray Cepho, and there was nobody else there. Well, then I came through on one of the road trips, and Coach Follis had just taken the job. I sat down and talked to him for the first time, and it was the first conversation what would go on to be 4 years of seeing each other all over the road. The most recent time I spoke with him was just a couple weeks ago, because he left and gone back home, and he was going to do some, start some gym things up there. But I remember I see him on the road with Mishore Caraway, and it was always, this kind of guy that immense knowledge. But there's a lot of people that are smart and a lot of people that are technically sound in this game. But he never made you feel like you were he was above you in any way. Like Bob is super, super chill and easy to get along with. You know what I mean? And just a fountain of knowledge, that guy. When I heard the news that we lost him, it was, like I said, we definitely lost a good one. I never heard a bad word about him. And in this business, if somebody's a schmuck, you're gonna hear it. You know what I mean? You're gonna hear like Josh Koscheck, best thing I ever heard about. And I like Josh. I can't remember who said it, but somebody goes, I don't even like the guy, and I'm his friend. You know what I mean? It's if somebody's a prick or somebody's a leech or something like that, you're gonna hear it. But I never heard anything bad about Coach Follis at all. And the fighters they work with, I always heard great things. So yeah, MMA, it wasn't just the teams the coached or the fighters he coached. The sport in general lost a good one, man.
Yeah. Oh man. And of course, you never want to lose anybody that you care about. And we're all grown-ups. We've all lost people before, This is part of life. I mean, we're all fragile. It could happen at any time. But man, it was just devastating, man. It's heartbreaking. So much unfinished business, I felt like. But, what can you do? I got to move past it, we all do. It happened. And, for days I've wished that I had a time machine. I could just go back in time and somehow change it or do something. Or I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and it's just going to be a nightmare that didn't really happen. But anyway, so let's move on. Listen, it is Christmas time. Okay. I got a couple more questions for you. And these are completely off the subject of MMA. What is your favorite Christmas movie? This has been a topic of discussion for a lot of people the last couple of weeks.
Oh man, and I know Christmas Vacation up there in a lot of people's, but I'm a diehard plug, and that's a Christmas movie, by the way.
Oh yeah,
and I'm a diehard. I like some diehard shit, but I'm a Christmas Story guy. Like I love a Christmas Story. And I mean, I will literally
that one does not get enough mentions. Maybe it's a generational thing
no,
because that's more our generation.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit, man. Like, there's a reason TBS runs that shit 24 hours a day and lead up. You know what I mean? Like, you can pop in at any time and watch it. I think my favorite part is what he said, because the narrator's awesome. And he said, my old man wove a tapestry of obscenities that, as far as we know, still hovers over Lake Michigan today. Like, brilliant, But yeah, I'm with that. I'm with the story.
I love that. I love that movie, man. You're right. I totally forgot, man. It's probably on TBS right now, and I should probably nightcap with that bad boy. Awesome. So I got another movie, and I wanted to know, number one, are you a Star Wars guy? I certainly am. And have you seen The Last Jedi? If so,
let me emphatically say, fuck yes, I'm a Star Wars guy.
All right.
And
that's what I want to hear.
Yes, I got back from Myrtle Beach covering the Warfare show on Sunday. I got home, came home, dropped off my luggage, picked up my two kids, and then we hit the theater. And and if everybody's, I'm sure if you haven't watched it, then shame on you. But yeah. I walked out the next morning. I woke up. I said, I still felt it. Like our childhood, bro. Like it's gone.
Thank you. So you liked it or you didn't like it?
No, I love the movie. I just didn't like the fact of how we had to lose Luke in there. I was glad that, they didn't have him chump out and do the Obi-Wan shit against Kylo Ren. I mean, because I thought that's where it was heading. Yeah. But at the same time, Mark Hamill's interviews have been pretty telling because, he was pretty vocal, but he couldn't say anything per contract. There was just him and the director about it. But he's right, dude. Like yeah. Luke Skywalker has represented hope the entire time he's been he's been introduced into the saga, and to see him so despondent and hopeless, that's not who his character is. I mean, he would have that drove me a little nuts, But yeah, I loved the movie. I ranked it as my second favorite Star Wars behind Empire Strikes Back.
Really?
But I didn't like the way they didn't have to take Luke from us. It didn't have to happen.
Well, you know how they do. He's going to be a Jedi ghost probably in the next one. Just like we saw Yoda, and we're over here giving out spoilers. But like you said, shame on you if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine that are from our generation. It's kind of hit or miss. I talked to Damon Martin actually about this earlier. He thought the movie was awesome. He wrote a great review on Nerdcore Movement about it. And my best friend, the one that's coming out to Vegas next week, he and I felt the same way you do. There's a couple things that didn't really sit well with me, but at the end of the day, I left there feeling like, God damn, that was an amazing movie. That was a freaking, just such an awesome movie. I'm probably going to watch it 100 times and probably, take something away from it each and every time I watch it. But some of my friends and some of the, trolls online have been talking about this and that, and they don't like it for this, that, and the other. And I'm like, listen, you fucking dummies. Did you think a 35, 40-year-old movie was going to be able to have the exact same magic from a movie that was filmed on analog in the late 70s and the 80s? Things evolve, I think a lot of people, they automatically, just because Disney is associated with it, they already made up in their mind before they even saw the movie that they're going to hate it. well, this is Disney. Disney's going to fuck it up. I had a buddy that told me that before I even saw the movie. He's like, oh, Disney's going to figure out a way to screw this up. And then I asked him a couple of days later, oh, the movie was terrible. It was awful. Now, you cannot look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me that movie was terrible. There's no way in hell. Even if...
No, people will. You know, because Ronnie, there's just people that I realize that people just want to hate shit. Shit that's great. People just like, they want to be contrarian. Yeah. To be like, yeah, it wasn't all of that. Look, yes, you brought up a great point. People saying, well, it's not like our Star Wars. Well, guess what? We had our time. And the fact that they still make these movies that will involve us, and the fact that it still ties into our storylines, those are awesome. But make no mistake about it, Rey and Kylo, those are for our children. You know what I mean? Like, there are Luke Skywalker and our Leia's. You know what I mean? Like, that's how, the Star Wars is like fucking Metallica. You know, it's 30 years on, and it's still rock and roll, baby. It still kicks ass, but it kicks ass a different way, right?
Thank you. That's it. Yes, exactly.
They can't be doing fucking Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All, how great that was, but they had to move on. But if you could still say, you listen to Metallica, you're like, you know what? I started at Kill 'Em All, and now I'm on to, Saint Anger, and you're like, okay, that's Metallica. I love it because it's Metallica. Star Wars the same way. But you're still going to have those pricks that hated the Black Album because they cut their hair and they stopped doing 7-minute fucking songs, went down to 4. You know what I mean? Like, okay. But they still had Inner Sandman and fucking Nothing Else Matters, right? Like, come on. Like, sad but true? Are you kidding me? How can you hate the Black Album? But I'll say this. At least we know. Like, when I have friends like that come out and say some dumb shit like that, I'm like, well, you showed your card. Like, I'll still be your friend, but I'm not going to value your opinion on anything because you're a dumbass.
That's so true. It's like your word is no longer good here, man.
Right.
It's crazy, man.
You go sit at the kids' table.
Yeah, because you find yourself engaged in that argument, and then you stop yourself and you go, wait, what? Why am I even taking you seriously right now? Like, you're obviously a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you're like, you know what? Tim's a cool guy, but he's a fucking hater. Jabroni. He's fun to hang out and drink with, but I'm not gonna let him watch my kids, obviously.
No. No, and like you touched on it. People went in there with the wrong expectation. Yeah, exactly. I had another buddy that said, "Oh, this movie, it's all Disney. It's a toy funnel." I said, "Hey, dummy, what do you think it was when we were kids? We went out and bought all the fucking toys too."
Absolutely.
It's not
Hasbro.
It's not as visceral and it's not as dark. But this isn't the goddamn 70s and 80s either. It's a different time. It's a different era, and. Yeah, man, it's just like I was telling my best friend too, man, which he enjoyed the movie. I said, yeah, it was cool. It's cool. Like, we got Han Solo in the last movie for a little bit, and we got Luke, and then we got that nostalgia. But let's be real. Nobody wants to see those old-ass motherfuckers hogging up the goddamn screen. It's time to move the fuck on. And least of all, the younger generation damn sure don't want to see them because they don't appreciate them as much as we do. They don't know them like we do. They need that new blood.
Oh, dude, and that's why I think, Marvel, Marvel's moving through the MCU. I think they have the perfect idea, man. Like, I think they made it no secret that coming up in the Infinity War, Chris Evans, Downey Jr., all those original Avengers are on the last movie of their contract. I think they'll kind of find a way to keep maybe one or two of them around. But dude, you got to move things forward, right? Like, you just have to. And you're exactly right, dude. Like, we didn't see Sir Alec Guinness, in fucking a New Hope, fucking doing flips and shit on wires. He just stood there and took that fucking force magic from Darth because he had to. And but at the same time, you're right. Like, my one complaint, and further spoiler, my only complaint it was a selfish complaint. It wasn't even. It was I know, and it would have went against the storyline, but because of how Luke got to where Kylo was, like, I understood that, like, they couldn't, like, square off and they couldn't have a saber battle. But that was my one thing. I walked out, like, there was all that great tension, right? You're like, oh, it's coming. And then they don't really battle, really, and then you find out why, and it's like, oh, shit, that's dope, that's cool. But my one selfish thing was like, man, I would have loved to see Luke cut loose with him,
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, props to my little man, Savage, my little 9-year-old, he like taps me on the shoulder and he's like, because right, the scene right before he shows up, Luke's talking to Leia, and he's like, Dad, his beard's shorter. And I'm like, what? Shut up. I'm watching the fucking movie. You know? He's like, his beard's shorter, his hair's shorter. And I'm like, maybe he cleaned up before battle. Who knows, bro?
Yeah.
And my dude's like, Dad, he's not leaving footprints. I'm like, how are you noticing that he's not leaving footprints? And he's like, because they just showed Kylo's foot digging in and it's red. And I'm like genius, man.
Oh,
you're an attentive genius. Now, how can you pick that up on that screen, but you can't hear me tell you to clean your room 5 feet away?
Selective hearing, brother.
Right?
Oh, man. No, right. That's a great point.
It's the Force.
Yeah.
The Force is strong.
he's put it strong within him. He's putting them Jedi mind tricks on you. Man, I didn't even notice that. But, yeah, they did make it a point to let you know that there was that red, like, salt beneath the surface. And everything was leaving tracks. And he's just walking on water. Oh, my God. Hey.
So this is what we got to do. We got to do, because when we do part 3 of this, because this is going to be ongoing, we're going to start part 3 of our interview series off with fucking going and talking full Star Wars episode. Because you can't, like, I'm started now, buddy. Like, now that I know we're both fucking Star Wars dorks, we'll start at, we'll leave the Phantom Menace out of it, because nobody needs to revisit that. No. We can go from 2 on up.
Yeah, I just watched. I made my wife has never seen Rogue One, and I've still got the buzz from watching Last Jedi. Oh. So and it's on Netflix. So I was like, man, we got to watch Rogue One. That movie gets better every fucking time I watch it. It is so goddamn good. And all those complaints, like I said, that some of my buddies and some of the online trolls have about, it's too Disney or too whatever, too kid friendly. Look. Go watch Rogue One. That one is dark as it's fucking dark, man. That one is dark as Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion. It's dark, and it's fucking great.
Oh, dude, nobody lives. That's the thing. It's like Rogue One. I'm glad you brought that up. How impressive for an offshoot without characters. Yeah. But you gotta admit, but they found a way. At the end, when that corridor goes dark and that fucking red saber comes up, boom! Fucking Vader's in the house,
dude.
That was our moment. But yeah, for darkness wise, dude, everybody dies in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all that. All those miracles that had to happen just for those freaking plans to get, and then it's the catalyst that starts A New Hope. Like the way they tied it into the story. And there's a new game out, Battlefront 2. I don't know if you're a gamer, but I started playing it today, and it's got another little sort of parallel story that's pretty dope. I was playing the campaign, and it's phenomenal.
I played
in the world.
The new Battlefront last weekend. I kind of my buddy has it across the street. We were over there watching football, and I played a little bit. But yeah, dude, you think about it. What a great and how significant a story New Hope is, right? And then you find out there's this great fucking story right before it. Like, literally, that story ends right when New Hope starts. And it just makes you, like, appreciate the depth of this universe so much more. So, yeah, man, that great movie. And if anybody out there hasn't seen Rogue One, watch that shit.
Oh, yeah. And they're going to keep that going because they've started to figure out the model with like you mentioned, the Marvel movies and the X-Men movies, and just look, I feel that right now we live in the golden age of television. Like Breaking Bad, in my opinion, is the greatest TV show of all time. I could probably name 10 shows that came out in the last 3 to 4 years that are like in the top 5 shows of all time. And one of the patterns there, like Game of fucking Thrones, for God's sakes. And you look at the other franchise, like the Harry Potter movies. They don't make sequels anymore. I mean, these are just episodic fucking sagas, movies. They're literally making 2 to 3 hour movies that are in volumes. They're like 8 movies. Never mind sequels. Where used to, like back in our day, in the 90s especially, like they would make a sequel to just try to cash in on the first movie and rehash it. But now they're telling stories just to keep the fucking story going. Like, who knows, man? There could be 10 more Star Wars movies, and they could all be fucking amazing. And I'm just fine with that.
Oh, dude, I love how, like, when we were kids, like, going like movies were where it was at. You never saw a movie actor do TV, right? And now they figured out with Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and like Mad Men, these episodic things, these serials, if you will, you get so much more story stretched out of it that now we're seeing actors jump and do smaller things. So, but yeah, man, hey, I'm gonna have to run here. My Flow Combat show is getting over, brother. But let's do episode 3.
Yes, sir. Hey, listen, Duane Finley, I thank you, and I wish you a Merry Christmas to you and your family. I'll be in touch, my brother.
My brother, keep up the good work. Keep kicking ass and smash your mouse.
Thank you. You do the same.
See you, brother.
Later.